All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this blistery cold morning. I've been told that for the last couple of days, this is the weather we've had, so I really appreciate it. I want to thank everyone for joining us on this Day of Remembrance. I especially want to thank all of the Hach associates as well as Beckman associates represented here, which are honorable veterans in our company. We have close to 160 veterans working with us between Hach and Beckman. Not all of them in this location here in Colorado, but we have a number of field associates as well. So today we remember and thank all of them, whether they're here physically or not, and we definitely thank you for their service. So, as you know, just maybe a little bit of history. It's about 101 years old since Armistice Day, which sort of is the genesis for our Veterans Day remembrance. So, obviously celebrated on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of the year. So today is not a day of celebration. I like to think about it as more of a day of remembrance, really thinking about the great service that all of our veterans have carried out throughout the past 100 years. There's a lot of sacrifice, that every veteran has had to go through. And those could be personal in nature. Some of you represented here left loved ones, everyone, whether it's a spouse, whether it's children. Some of you went off to carry your duties with your child being unborn. Some of you perhaps left, and went away not even knowing that you were going to have a child when you came back. So, there's a higher calling in all of our veterans, in all of those that serve our country. And that has to be remembered, it has to be honored. We are thankful and we are forever indebted to you. So thank you again for all the service and everything that you've done for our country. I also want to reflect on something that I think is very important, I know, to all of us, but it's very important to a lot of us that are first generation immigrants in this country. This is the greatest country on earth. It is a true democracy with true representation. And it is a democracy that protects all of us regardless of our religion, political beliefs, sexual orientation, or regardless of where you come from. And I think even to this day, way into the 21st century, it is the only country in the world that has claim to that. And it is because of you, because of your service, and because of everything that you've done, that this country is still standing and is still true to our original Constitution. So I personally want to thank you for that. And I know that, not just in the past, but when we're called to serve and really serve that higher calling, all of us will be ready to do that. So I want to introduce, Jameson, one of our Hach colleagues, an honorable veteran himself, to continue with our ceremony. Jameson, thank you.
Thanks, Hermes. So, thanks, Hermes. I don't know about the honorable part, but we'll give it a try here. A couple weeks ago, I was asked if I would come out here and say a few words, and had the honor of laying the wreath at the flagpole, and I said, of course, that would be a great honor for me. Unfortunately for you all, that means there's a public speaking component for me to perform up here. So here we go. So like Hermes said, I'd like to thank you all for coming out here today. It is cold. We'll try to make this as brief as we can. But I'd like to thank you all for supporting this event. This is my second year coming out here to this event, and I think we have more people here this year. So I think that's a really good trend going forward. And I would like to thank Hermes and Kevin and the entire leadership team for supporting this event year after year, and Nancy and the whole team inside for putting on the meal. I think it's really special, and it's something that not a lot of companies do for their associates. I'd like to introduce myself very briefly. My name's Jameson. I'm a product manager here at Hach. I've been here about 16 months now. I spent 9.5 years in the Army. I decided to join when I was at CU actually, and I decided to become a cadet. And after that, I became a field artillery officer in the Army. And I assumed that I would do my 4 years like everybody else, and I didn't know that that journey would take me so many different places for so long. I ended up spending 9.5 years in the Army and got out in 2016. And as we stand here today on Veterans Day, I'd like to just share a few things about what this day means to me. So I think it's important for us, kind of like Hermes said, is a day of remembering, and as remembering those who came before us. One of the really unique things about being a veteran or serving is that you're connected to all of the other veterans that came before you and all of the ones that are going to come later by this really unique bond. And I think that that's something really special to be able to look back and say, hey, I've got something personally in common with all of these people going back to the founding days of our country. I think it's also really important for us to reflect on our families today. We spend a lot of time thinking about those that serve, and oftentimes the families aren't lumped into that conversation like they should be. And the families that are there with us, much to Hermes' point, they serve alongside. They go through a lot of the same sacrifices. And interestingly, today is the 10 years to the day since I proposed to my wife. I proposed to her on Veterans Day 2009. I was getting ready to go on an overseas tour, and I was like, I need to come up with some really special proposal, and it's going to take me all day to prepare it. And I decided I was going to fill up like hundreds and hundreds of balloons, and I'm like, it's going to take a long time. So I had to pick a day that I had off that she had to work, and that was Veterans Day. And I sat in the house all day long blowing up balloons, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, filling them with little notes and little trinkets, and I was just watching movies and filling up balloons all day. And she came home, and I was exhausted. I'd been sitting at home all day doing nothing, and I was exhausted all day. And she comes to me like, you look like you've ran like 5 miles. And I'm like, I know. And I was like, but you need to go upstairs and see what's going on. And she went upstairs, and there was all these balloons everywhere, and she started popping them, and all the little notes and chocolates and stuff came out, and in one of them there was a diamond ring, and that was the whole thing. So that's my fun like Veterans Day story, because I know that for most people Veterans Day kind of comes and goes, but it's a little bit special for me. And I actually just texted her this morning. I'm like, hey, has it really been 10 years? I think that it's also important for us to think about service in general, and going forward, like, what are we going to do to continue to serve our communities and our fellow people and our neighbors and our families. And just because we're not in the service anymore doesn't mean that we can't serve and we can't help others. And then lastly, I would just like for us all to maybe reflect a little bit on those that are still in harm's way today. As we sit here, there's people on ships and overseas and in countries and in airplanes doing the things that many of you did, and they're going to be missing Thanksgiving this year, like we all missed Thanksgiving. And so please keep them in your mind a little bit today as well. And the last challenge that I would have is that as we go through today, and maybe as we go to the other events that are planned, try to pick out somebody new that you haven't met yet and ask them their story and talk to them about your story. And you never know what you'll find, because it's a small world out there. Just last week, Tanya and I were talking, and we found out that myself and her husband were stationed at the same FOB in Iraq at the exact same time. And we were like eating at the same chow hall and everything. And we would have never known that if we didn't just lay our stories out there. So I'd like to thank the leadership team again for giving the opportunity, the honor to do this. And I'd like to thank you all for coming out. Thank you for your service. And that's all. Thanks.